Hello, product people. Welcome to the Product for Product podcast, hosted by Matt Green, data advocate and product manager, and Musha Mikanovsky, product leader and author. Our goal is to serve the product community by helping you find products that can help make your work in product management easier. Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Product for Product podcast.
Welcome back, everyone. On today's episode, Moshe and I are happy to be speaking with product leader Marcus Polini about various tools you can use in your job search, including AI. So let's dive in. Welcome to the show, Marcus.
Hey, Matt. Thank you very much.
It's great to have you. Hey, Moshe.
Hey, Matt. Hey, Marcus. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah, great to have you all the way from Calgary, Canada.
That's right. Yeah. Huge commitment to hop online to this link across the country.
Yes.
It's great to have you. And Moshe loves having the Canadian guests on the show. We have a little ongoing battle of like U.S., international, Canadian.
I'm behind this year on the tally, but it's okay. It's okay.
It's okay. You destroyed me last year, so.
It's okay. Yeah, I love Americans also. Don't worry.
Yeah,
all
it's
good.
Great.
+1 to the Canadian guest list.
Yes,
exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Okay, so yeah, today we are talking about an interesting topic. We did talk in the past, maybe a couple of years ago, with a headhunter that is using LinkedIn and is also, we told us for product people how to use LinkedIn for your benefit to find your next job, etc. And we talk with Ravi Mehta at the time about competencies in product people. But now we're talking with you, Marcus, because you recently looked for your job and you applied different tools that I found really interesting. You shared it also on LinkedIn. So I was like, let's talk about that on the show because, time has passed. There is a lot of new things going on these days, like Matt mentioned in the intro about AI. But first, before we get to that, tell us a bit about yourself and how did you get into product management? Because it's always an interesting story from everyone.
Yep.
For sure. Yeah. And the more talking with product people about this, the more you just realize how non-linear everyone's journey is into product.
Yeah.
I had gone to school and studied engineering. It was geomatics engineering. So kind of specialty was about positioning and measurements and statistical analysis. And in that career, it was interesting for me for a couple years where I was working for a positioning company, but I found myself having this nagging doubt that I wanted to be a tech founder. There was a hackathon that some university friends and I participated in. And in that hackathon, we used open city data and some events that were going on in Calgary and kind of pushed together this Android app that was really brutal. That it ended up getting judges' choices where it ended up helping people connect and discover events going on in their cities and then using the city infrastructure to be able to get to those events, find parking, use the bus routes and things like that. And after university, this chapter had closed in most of our lives, except for me, where I was still having vicious dreams about pursuing this thing as maybe an actual startup because it got validated. There was this judge's choice. People thought this was really cool. And so I asked my friends if they wanted to do this as, a startup. And everyone was in their careers and they said, no, Marcus, you go for it though. So I took this thing and for a year of my life, I pretended to be a founder. I had learned a lot about entrepreneurship, about the kind of resilience that you need to have when doing something new, especially when it's mostly on your own. You're spending a ton of time on your own, just learning new skills. I had a co-founder who was a really amazing guy and technical person. And so I kind of looked up to him and taught myself how to code and do some front-end development and released this app onto the marketplace on the Apple Store as this like beta only version. And I was protecting it. And it was like, no, it needs to be pixel perfect. I would spend all afternoon adjusting the alignment of this, that, picking different fonts, and ultimately really failed with creating a business out of this thing. But that failure from what was called CityConnect ended up leading into a really interesting opportunity to work for a startup in Vancouver. When I realized that this job was this startup wasn't going to be a thing for me. I ended up applying for like 60 front end engineering jobs, and I was looking on Angel List at the time, and which is now Well Found, and I had all of these applications for front end engineering, and none of them got back to me. Absolutely zero. And the 61st job that I applied to was for a junior project manager at a tech company in Vancouver. And they're the ones who took a chance on me. And so very quickly at that company, they were doing professional services. And their professional services team said, all of our business analysts and our project managers, we're actually going to make you product managers because we think that that's going to serve our clients better. And that really sparked the career into product.
That's cool. Do you think CityConnect was a bit of a gateway into that project management role, and then additionally the product management? Like, did they see that as like something to, like, hey, you went out as an entrepreneur and a founder to do something?
Yeah, that was really there's there's very few product management school things that you could do. Most people end up getting an MBA that qualifies you to be a product manager. In this case, they were looking for someone who was really junior, and they had seen the capability of learning technical things and being a technical person, which can be really helpful in the product role. And then also this entrepreneurial appetite. And I've come to learn over the years in my career as a product person that a lot of people hiring into product roles are looking for that entrepreneurial edge, and they tend to make really great product people. So that's something that they had recognized in me at that time.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, Mache and I've talked about this with some other guests and people around, showing your ability to grow and learn and want to, expand your knowledge is like one of the key fundamentals of like product management and engineering. But like to be able to demonstrate that and to talk about that with prospective, organizations who are hiring, I think that's like a level up versus other people. So
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah. And taking really dumb risks about your career early on.
Yeah.
Well, there
Do
is
it early, right?
there is a lot of common things between being an entrepreneur and a founder to being a product manager.
Mhm.
And entrepreneurs that
Yeah.
don't have that experience don't really know it, but they learn the hard way with some failures. But this is really the experience that product managers should have.
Mhm.
So I'm sure they've seen that in you, and I'm sure that all of that experience from the past was very, uh, helpful for you to not just land that job, but also to do your job better. But let's jump to the recent time. You've been head of product at a company called Medstack, which is a Canadian company that was recently acquired, developing a platform for security for all the medical related and health related platforms. And I know all of that because I interview you for another podcast that I host, the Beyond Product.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, with the CEO, Balaji, and before it was acquired, right? So
Right.
tell us just a little about that, and then what happened that made you look for a new job recently.
Yeah. So a bit of the arc of that MedStack journey. At the time of me working in product for about a year and a half, I had this kind of rush and interest into medicine. It actually kind of started off with following some medical influencers and being like, wow, it could be so cool to go back and pursue maybe an education in medicine, potentially going down the road of being like an MD. And so I looked into this more and was seriously considering applying for med school. And then it kind of occurred to me that that lifestyle of being in the hospital, going through the actual process of becoming, a healthcare professional might not be the most gratifying way for me to deliver value and make an impact in health.
Mm-hmm.
And so I figured there was probably an avenue that could bridge tech and could bridge an interest in healthcare. And this serendipitously coincided with me attending True North 2019 or 20, yeah, True North 2018. This is an awesome little conference that happens in Waterloo. I shouldn't even say that it's little. And it had such an amazing gathering of people. And one of the talks that was going on there I remember this hook line, this guy presenting on stage, and he had said, the value of a clean healthcare record is 66 times worth the value of a clean credit card on the black market. And that really had me being like, what? Why? And the person speaking was Balaji, one of the co-founders of Medstack. And so I was looking at Medstack afterwards, and I was like, wow, this is super interesting. They're doing like cybersecurity and enablement in digital health for startups. How are they doing this? What is their product? And I started hitting them up on LinkedIn. And the hiring process, there was a posting for a product manager there. And I think they'd been hiring it for that role for almost a year before I started hitting Balaji up on LinkedIn and sliding his DM saying like, hey, I think this is really the role. You should really consider me. And it went on for months until finally something landed where we felt it was a really great mutual fit. And to what we were talking about earlier, and as you guys both backed up, that entrepreneurial experience was critical. It was a critical factor in me being selected for that role. So at that time at Medstack, we were building a platform that really decreased the level of energy that startups needed to invest into their application security at a hosting level. And they were able to adopt a lot of the compliance and security pieces that we took care of on our platform, which really made it easier for them to go into sell into hospitals or clinics that really wanted to see and understand what were you doing to protect the data that's going to be flowing into your app. So that's really where we had taken that product, and we were focusing on this enablement for startups. For about 5 years, just over 5 years at Medstack, we were focused on that mission, and there was a opportunity for Medstack to be acquired by a venture studio. And that mission alignment really made a lot of sense for Medstack and the venture studio, because they're working with startups. Medstack is tailor-made for startups. And this is like a win-win for people, and being able to create solutions in healthcare through that kind of like, founder-backed VC model. So with the acquisition of Medstack, there was just a part of the team that was taken to pretty much have that business continue to be a profitable one, and also just like that core team to maintain the app, build on it, and naturally the CEO becomes like the product person or the product strategist for this. And so when that had happened, I thought, wow, okay, Medstack is moving on. I'm not a part of this journey. This really sucks. And it opened up a door of possibility that I never really thought was going to be there. Serendipitously, it worked out that Lenny's podcast, like the super popular product management podcast, he had a guest by the name of Phil Terry. And Phil Terry talked about the never search alone process. And this, learning about the never search alone process to help navigate your career and find something that's actually going to be really satisfying and a gratifying, rewarding career. Plus me now recently not being a part of this transition opened up an opportunity for me to kind of do my own thing with this NSA process and discover, how has everything that I've learned up to now be able to add into something that could be a really amazing career next step for me.
I do want to note on one point though that I really like, Marcus. You mentioned your passion for like Medstack. Is I think that's a key fundamental of like your job search and looking for something, your next opportunity. Like not everyone can like find the thing they're most passionate about, but like finding something you're interested in can really, and a product you want to build and a problem you want to solve, I think is a key piece of the job search. I think, some people miss on, because I think that's where like a product management, if you're passionate about solving the problem, I think that's like a big thing about success.
Totally. There was a moment in my life before all of this, probably almost 2 years ago, that had more of an impact on this entire process than I ever could have planned. And I was actually just talking with one of my mentors about this. And the best strategy is one where really you're just able to set up lighthouses along the way and adapt the tactics to meet the plan. And so there's 0% chance in like any universe that I would have actually planned out this exact progression of events, but it was really just rolling with it. So what I'm referring to a couple of years ago is I was sitting at a dinner table with one of my friends, and we were talking about investments. And we had gotten together every few months to go through, what are some investments that you're doing, and what's working, what's not, and just having some fun, light conversation just to chat about these things. And at one point, I remember asking him, like, what kinds of things do you think I should invest in? I was deciding between, like, do I do something with renting out a property and real estate, or do I do something with actually putting that capital towards investing in stocks? And they're very different investment vehicles. His response to me was another question to my question. He says, well, it depends. What kind of life do you want to live? And when he asked me that, I actually really had no idea. I was like, I don't know what kind of life I want to live. I just want to be able to do dinners and hang out with friends and have fun.
It's funny how many times, most of us, we just don't think about that.
Right. Yep.
Not at all. And it really struck me. So the next day I sat down on my couch, pulled my butt down, and I didn't move for about 4 hours until I figured out what kind of life I wanted to live. And so I wrote this document, this Google Doc, and the title was Investment Thesis. And then underneath of that, there was a section called Life Goals. And I was like, okay, if I'm going to figure out my investment thesis, I need to figure out what kind of life I want to live. And that life that I want to live can be figured out by my life goals. But I don't even know what my life goals are. So this is where AI came in and was really helpful. I remember prompting. Exactly.
The guru, AI guru.
Yeah. I needed it to help me create a bit of a framework or structure. So I figured, how can I characterize my life goals? What kinds of things are going to matter in characterizing and framing up my life goals? And the long short of it is that it spit out 3 things. One are your values. Second is your passions and your interests. And 3 is your motivating forces. I really sat down and thought about that, especially with the values piece. I had the dialectic behavioral therapy list of values, and I think there's like 75 values on that. And that was the reference that I was using to figure out values. I started off by checking all the ones that seemed relevant, and I ended up checking like 50 of the 75. I'm like, okay, that's not gonna work. So I started paring down, and stack ranked them. And it came to reducing down to a list of 5 values. And those five values, I think about them more often than I probably should be thinking and coming back to them. Or maybe it's just often enough, but they ended up being balance, money, wisdom, health, and connection. And that had really set me up when thinking about my career, not just doing something that I'm like passionate about, but making sure that I'm doing something that is going to give me balance, that is going to give me the money that I need per the life that I've defined. It's going to give me opportunities to grow, be wise. That's really a self-awareness and a perspective thing. Allow me to focus on my health and allow me to cultivate meaningful connections. And I have a sibling who lives overseas, and so I want to be able to travel and spend time with them. And that obviously has with it some costs. So all of these things kind of coming together had really allowed me to create a framework for thinking about the kind of life that I wanted to live. And then it was really obvious to me what my life goals would have been at that time for kind of chalking out, the things that matter to me.
That's a great way to center yourself and to live with that mantra or those values. Often people just think about money and chasing one of those different verticals, but to think about it holistically is a great way to do it.
It's not only that. This is really product centered. I when you were talking about that and explaining and also sharing your experience, narrowing down your values, I've done a similar things many years ago when in one of my first product positions with a business coach that was coaching a few managers and leaders in my organization. But I never put the 2 dots together back then because I still wasn't thinking about everything as a product. But if you think about everything as a product, including your life and including your career, you are the user here. You're also, the vendor, but you're the user here, and you create value in your life to yourself at the end of the day. Also to your loved ones, if
Yeah,
that's one of your circles that you care about. Most of
for
us do.
sure.
Most of us do. And those values are really important to understand, then what are the objectives, what are the outcomes you're trying to get, how do you strategize how to get there, what's the ways to measure that, what does a success looks like. So everything really falls into place in the way we think about products, but also about our life. So I'm really glad that you started it that way rather than just saying, okay, I just look for a job and use these tools, because you actually had an outcome to achieve.
Yeah, and I'll say that this was no stroke of genius. This was purely luck. I was asked like what kind of life I wanted to live when talking about things to invest in, and that took me off by surprise. I was
Sometimes that's
just
all you
coming out
need.
of yeah, I was coming out of a relationship at that time, and so I was just like, a mush ball of vulnerability. And so I ended up doing this exercise. But you're right, Moshe. Like it really allowed me to actually create acceptance criteria, or I should say, measures of success for these different kinds of values and
Mhm.
life goals. Like,
Mhm.
for example, the three goals that I came up with were: one, increase health span, because like the quality of life that I have as I age is really important. Two was to sustain relationships without any boundaries and to explore endlessly. That would allow me to honor connection and be able to just be a constant learner and explorer. And then the third was just stay true to myself, which I don't think there was any like financial thing that would be backing that, or this is just really just this awareness of coming back to these things.
Yeah.
But in order for me to be able to do this kind of travel, I realized I needed, I think it was something like $20,000 a year to be able to do the amount of travel that I wanted. And for the health stuff, I realized I needed about something like $500 or $700 a month to like buy food from the farmer's market, to be able to like get the supplements that I need so I can, sleep better and have better gut health and all these things, and go to a gym and have a trainer if I need. And it really came down to being like, hey, somehow I got to make these investments make 30 grand more per year. And that money is just a direct investment back into all of these core values. And that's where
Mhm.
your job and your career really does matter. And I honor the NSA process, and that it teaches you to think a little bit differently about how you negotiate for salary and total compensation. Because part of the process is that when you find a job that you really love, you not only create a job description and a list of objectives and key results, but backing that is part of the application process. You say, here are the resources that I need, here's the support that I need, and here's the compensation that I need to be able to get it done.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Yeah.
so with that, you could really focus on understanding your needs and get some very rewarding career capital out of it.
Absolutely. So you mentioned before the never search alone process, but maybe you can tell us a bit about more of that. But in general, what strategies and tactics and tools did you use in your recent search based on having defined these outcomes?
So for that, there's a really great like process and set of templates that the Never Search Alone process has. But at that time when I had, been laid off from Medstack, and I was thinking, my career is now at this like inflection point. What the heck am I going to do? Am I going to go be a barista? Am I going to open a coffee shop that is like a lifelong dream of mine? Something so simple, probably so hard to actually do. I decided like let's celebrate this message of Medstack and also use this as a call to action. If there are other product people in my network and in second degree and third degree networks who are also interested in having some kind of career pivot or just pursuing the next steps of what their career is going to be in product. So I put together a message and shared it on LinkedIn, and it got some really great engagement that led me to actually be able to find myself 5 people who were interested in pursuing this product management career next steps. So the call to action was like, hey, if you're a head of product or you're a director of product or you're a senior IC at some larger companies, you probably fit this, this phenotype of a product person. where we can all jam on discussing what the next opportunity should be in our careers.
Yeah.
And I signed up to be a moderator on the Never Search Alone process, their website, and they give you a ton of templates to basically run. I think it's like 10 sessions that they want you to commit to at the beginning, and you go through listing out things that your next job must not have, because that's easy enough to do. It's like, okay, what do you not like? And you're like, oh, where do I start? Bang, bang, bang. And then you flip it on its head, and you kind of use the opposite of things that you don't like to help flesh out maybe the things that you really do like, or things that you really do need. And that, like, what I must have, what I must not have, what would be nice to have, what would not be nice to have, really helps shake out the kind of job that you're looking for, from mostly from like a cultural fit, or like a tactical, like what does the actual day-to-day look like. And in that process, one thing that I found, and if this is like any words of like experience to share with the listeners, is that a lot of people focus on all the soft skills and focus a lot less on the requirements of your job in terms of the hard skills. So some hard skills are going to be like, doing a detailed data analysis, or, running statistical analyses. Like, if you really love that, that should be something that you do. If you really don't like that, maybe you need to focus less on that. And that could help share light into the kind of product person that you want to do, that you want to be, or the kind of role that maybe is a better fit for you, or areas even of opportunity. Because like understanding analytics is an important part of the product management job, but it could shed light on maybe some of the things that you can invest in and level up your game in too.
Yeah. So all of that, how did it help you eventually? Because when I was looking for jobs in the past, and maybe some companies become better with this, but not all of them, not every product position is really defined well. And the hiring managers don't always know what they're looking for, actually. So it was more of my experience over time to ask the right questions based on what I wanted. So over time, I learned the hard way what I don't like and what I like. And now you have that list of things of what you're looking for and what you're not looking for. So how did that help you actually navigate through job posting, job positions, interviews, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah. So actually, like from when Medstack had been acquired and I was laid off to the next opportunity that I had, it was about a month. And I did apply for some jobs during that time. And I don't think I got any responses back in that short period of time. Like the average person is finding a job within 3 to 6 months. So if you have like a month of no traction, I don't think that's so uncommon. Years ago, I had 60 applications as a front-end developer and had no responses. So, maybe if I applied as a car salesman, I would have had better luck something like that in a 1 month period. But in this case, it really was interesting for me because by making that post saying, hey, I'm doing this job search council, just through like the network effects of LinkedIn, someone had reached out to me and they said, hey, anyone who so-and-so who endorses you, I really respect their opinion and I'd like to chat with you about, would you be interested in a product job at our company? We could talk a little bit about the opportunity, what that could look like, and maybe it's a good mutual fit. And I responded back right away because it was pretty fresh. I think it was just like 2 or 3 weeks from, being laid off and committing down this NSA path. And I said, like, I'm not interested in full-time work. And they came back and said, oh, well, would you be interested in like part-time or consulting capacity? I was like, maybe, yeah, I guess I could be open to it. Let's keep the ball going. And so I met some of the team and everyone seemed really great. And I framed up the opportunity and brought it back to the job search council. And, from everything that everyone had understood about what resonated with me and what didn't, they're like, Marcus, you're crazy to pass this up. Like, this is actually such a good opportunity for you to go in and get work experience hands-on with this team, with leaders who you really seem to respect and like. And you also have the opportunity to just experiment with it. I was like, frick, you guys are right. So, Lenny's newsletter had just posted some research that there's more jobs right now in product management in the last 2.5 years than there's been. Like right now is the highest amount of available product jobs. And if the opportunity presents itself for you to, even to ask and go in quickly by doing a consulting capacity or some fractional work or something with the company and allow that to be a bridge into a full-time role, it gives you that experience to just experiment and see, how do I actually work with the team? How do I actually like the product space? It's like the hire fast and fire faster mentality, but for your career, you actually get to be hands-on and try it. And so that had worked really well, having that job search council to either validate or invalidate what I was seeing out of the opportunity, and then the openness from the company to just say, sure, well, we would be open to having you in a consulting capacity. And it just really teed up a great opportunity for me to make a career out of this this situation.
I love this approach actually, and it seems like you kind of stumble into it by chance, but I would love to see more and more companies going that direction of, I call it like rent to own, where you rent a house and you're not sure you want to live there, and then after some time you might buy it. But in this case, employees usually, when you leave your old job, let's say you're switching jobs and you left an own job and then you start a new job. In many countries, I know here in Ontario, there is 3 months probation usually. And I think many other places have this type of probations that the hiring company have much more power to let you go before the end of the 3 months. So you have to prove yourself. Now, it's a great thing. I feel it's a great thing. And I think many hiring managers don't use it to the extent they should use it. But it also puts at risk the employee that left the job or whatever it is. If you're not working, if you were laid off, there is less risk over there. But at least when you are starting as a consultant and you really understand a bit more about the company, you have less. It's not that you're still committing to that company. It's still a full-time thing or a part-time thing or whatever it is. But there is less maybe risk there, I guess. And you can really see by working with them, is that the right fit? And by them working with you, is this the right fit? So I kind of really like that way of hiring. By the name, what's the name of the company? I don't think we mentioned that.
Yeah, so I now am head of product at a company called Dispatch Integration. And Dispatch Integration works with enterprises and SMBs to really stitch together the fabric of all of their human capital management. So the IT of connecting HR systems to payroll to benefits and having that be automated in such a way that things are happening, snappy, reliably, and can be trusted. So they have had a business that's been really successful in doing this professional services kind of engagement, creating bespoke solutions for companies. And they have seen patterns of similar problems and tools that they've built internally that they end up using to solve a lot of challenges for their clients. And they figured this could go way beyond just the clients that we work with in a professional services capacity. This could really be its own standalone product, but we need a product person to be able to lead that effort full time and not have it just be like an internal tooling or a hobbyist thing.
So to productize it and make it a real product. Absolutely.
Yeah. And which is nothing novel, right? Like this is the professional services companies end up trying to create a product angle is something that has been done over and over again. But what may be different in how companies actually find success in this versus not, think is culturally and how you look at product management versus professional services. And so they felt it would be a good fit to hire me, who's like, I'm going to quit my day job in engineering and found a startup. Found a startup and like, oh, wow, this failed. And then get into tech and always been this kind of like startup product person.
Entrepreneur.
Which is a little bit different of kind of the fabric that makes someone think about larger project planning, project management, the scoping, quoting, discovery, the whole piece that comes with building, bespoke projects. There's overlap, but there's also like just fundamentally cultural difference.
Yeah, of course, of course. So you mentioned a bit how the community helped you, the Search Council helped you. You also use some AI tools in the process?
Yeah, in the process of searching, no. But the AI tools, I think, really comes back primarily to how I used it to frame up that life goals framework
Oh,
and
I
to
see.
help, yeah, and to help figure out what would actually resonate with me. It's also just such a great like mediator and sounding board. So the list of things that I ended up coming up with that mattered to me, or that I needed to avoid or must have, I played it back into chat gpt, and I'm
Mhm.
asking that, like, okay, what kind of things am I not considering here? What kinds of opportunities do I have to like improve the definition of this so I can get a better understanding of what would actually be rewarding and validating for me?
So
So that's the key area where AI came in. I think a lot of people um, may be interested in like the whole, during the job search process, I created this AI agent that direct emailed the CPO of like all top 500 product tech companies. But I don't think that that's really going to do you any favors. And the whole point of the community in the NSA process is to understand and help you get a better sense of what kind of uh, way that you're perceived in the market. So you can be objective. It's like, do I look like I'd be a great product leader at a fintech company? Probably not, compared to someone who's actually already been a product leader at a fintech company.
Mhm.
But would I be a good product person for building something that's 0 to 1? Maybe, because I've done this in an entrepreneurial capacity. It was unsuccessful. I learned a lot along the way. I did this at Medstack with our control product. I did it again with a new product that we ended up acquiring, going to market, building as part of our ecosystem. So you start hearing these things about, how are you actually perceived as a good fit, and that community is just essential in
Mm,
playing it back to be like, that doesn't look like that's you, or
yeah,
hey, that really does seem like that's you.
Yeah,
yeah,
I switched
yeah.
I switched roles about a month and a half ago, so I got a new role as well, working in integrations myself. So AI again is an assistant. It's a collaborator. So within the search and understanding the market. So if you're applying for jobs, like that, it can help you understand the environment you're looking to work in. It can help you understand the value structure you want to have in a job search. But
Mm-hmm.
you have to be mindful, like you don't like tell it to write a resume for you. It's going to spit out generic stuff. And a lot of times in searches these days, especially in large enterprises, they're going to scrub that stuff with AI itself. And so they're going to find patterns in like, hey, this is common information. And the AI can actually spit out stuff that's like maybe not what you can speak to on an interview process. So you got to be mindful, like just for people out there, like don't use AI to like make yourself generic with everybody else. Like still be yourself in the
To-
job search.
Totally. And I came across this LinkedIn post of a product leader who has been interviewing a bunch of product people. I think they said over the last 2 months, they've interviewed like 50 product people or 60 product people. And they shared some of the trends that they've noticed. And they said, about 5 to 10%. So it's a relatively small sample size, but relatively five to 10% of people are using AI during
Hmm.
the interview process to help them. And they commented that like it was obvious, and this is
Yeah.
when they performed the worst.
Yes.
They were the worst when they were reading off of the screen and they weren't coming from the heart, and they did much better when they would answer and respond to things that were just off of the knowledge that they had at the time. And it comes back to that whole thing, like, AI is going to have an answer for everything,
Yep.
but how powerful is it instead that in a job interview process, when you get, or even just like when you're speaking to something and someone asks you something that you don't know, and you can
Hmm.
be honest with it, be like, I don't really know that.
Right.
That's an area that I didn't consider.
Yep.
Or,
You will not know everything on your job as well. I mean, if someone is hired for everything they've done and not for something they will do, I don't know. I don't know if they really want that job because there is no push there to learn new things.
To grow.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
definitely. But in the role of the job, I mean, you want to talk tools. I wrote down some of the tools that I think if they were pulled away from me right now, I would be just like absolutely distraught.
Go
Yeah.
for
Let's
it.
hear.
Tell
Let's
us.
hear them.
Tell us. We want to
Yeah, yeah.
hear
So
that.
none of these are probably new, but I'll add some context into the way that I use them. So I use ChatGPT Plus. I actually use it for prompt refinement. So if I need to prompt a different AI system, I'll actually jam with ChatGPT to get the prompt into a better condition, so that the first prompt that I put into another system is already out of the gate going to be better. I'll use it for writing and also just like step-by-step instructions on things. I'll use the second tool is Perplexity Pro.
Mhm.
I use that probably like 100 times a day for search, research, and anything that needs to be done with like getting news or getting accurate information that's based off of like recent things. It's so ace in that category. Another one is Bolt. So I've been using Bolt in my day-to-day to really translate ideas and communicate faster and get feedback faster. So an example of that was we have this enterprise product that we want to go to market with. And in order to get the potential buyer to the aha moment very quickly, in the product experience, you need to work with IT and stitch together a whole bunch of stuff and go through a security review and yada, yada. And so you have to have like such high impact product marketing in order to even get the potential buyer to just interact with your product and go through the routes of a demo. And so we were figuring, can we just create like a fabricated interactive demo that guides them through the onboarding, and the credentials are already there and all the options are already selected, and then all they just do is click next, and then like send a test notification, and then they're completed the setup and they can get to that aha moment. And so in an afternoon, I created this like mock-up prototype in Bolt, and then played that back to the leadership team at Dispatch. And we're like, yeah, that's really cool. We like this. This is something that we could potentially even roll out as way of product marketing materials to actually convey value and get a user to that aha moment before they're even like in the lead funnel. So Bolt has been really transformative for that. And then there's Product Board. So I use Product Board for basically consolidating insights, prioritizing, and doing planning, all that tactic stuff. And one of the things I love most about Product Board specifically is the insights section. So they have like an AI summary that'll help synthesize the insight notes into like some concrete, one paragraph statement of what's going on. But using Bolt and Product Board together, this was really fun. So I built a bot. It's a little chat bot where it's our internal team at Dispatch can like open up, they authenticate with Google single sign-on, and then there's a little chat bot, and it's like, what do you want to tell Marcus? And there's my little avatar, and it's like, hey, what's going on? There's quick buttons, be like, report a bug, suggest an idea, or request a feature, and they click any one of those, and it just like pre-populates into the chat. Hey, I have this product idea, and the bot goes back and forth. It's been like, conditioned already to basically play the role of being a product manager soliciting feedback. And so now I'm getting this way of me getting information from my team has now turned from being like a feature submission form or a bug reporting form to this interactive bot that's asking all the live questions. And then when that conversation is completed, it gets fired off into Product Board. So Bolt has allowed me to do that and create that kind of tool internally, which has been a ton of fun.
Yeah,
that's cool. Great. Yeah, we're gonna have to look into Bolt. Yeah, sounds like a great tool.
Yeah, and then like two other quick ones. Granola. So I use Granola for note taking.
Granola.
Yeah, this thing is so good. With
there's
Granola,
so many of those note taking things that I never heard about this one.
Yeah. So what makes this one really nice in the day-to-day is like I actually find that before Granola, I would have like, 5 or 10 different text edit notes opened up. And I'm just the kind of person like jots down point form, like during a meeting, just really scrappy notes, bullet.
Mm-hmm.
And Granola works exactly in that way where you can still write those point form notes, but because it's recording the audio on your computer, you can basically press like enhance when it's done. And it'll take your crappy point form notes and enrich them with all the real context. And you can use Markdown to like create different heading sections. So you can be like, okay, here's a heading for like just the action items, which is a super obvious one that pretty much all the note-taking apps do. But you can do one for like podcast preparation tips, as a heading. And then all the information about podcast preparation that maybe you talked about in this meeting is going to get listed in that area. And so this is one of the AI tools that I use actually in preparing for this podcast. Was I went to lennybot.com and I was chatting with Lennybot saying, hey, you're going to be interviewing me on this product podcast and you're going to be talking about it. And I listed out all the questions that you guys gave me in advance of this. And I chatted with Lennybot for an hour and I recorded the whole conversation. And Granola was basically just like categorizing and making sense of all of this. It took this hour-long conversation into basically like a one-pager of some really like distilled talking points. Notebook LM Plus, using Notebook LM has totally changed the way that I think about onboarding and just synthesizing information for like opportunities and feedback. And one example of that was, I need to, in my role now, I need to learn a lot about Workday. And Workday as like a total human capital management suite of software. And the partner program specifically is like being a Workday partner. So I uploaded all of these documents into Notebook LM and then just like prompted, say, hey, create an onboarding guide to help me at this stage learn about this. And it spat out, that audio conversational, the podcast in a 15-minute episode and onboarded me faster into Workday than I ever could have imagined. So Notebook LM, I think, is a huge opportunity for changing the way that teams onboard people.
Amazing. No, this is a great list. And we are thinking about doing a series about different AI products that are helping product people in their job. So we might call you again on the show to speak about one of those specifically. We'll see.
Yeah, happy to dive into any of these deeper for sure.
Because there is always more discussions that we can do.
This is like the genesis of the show is all these different tools out there that product managers could use. And they're ever growing. So like Moshe and I, we can't always get them all. So it's great to hear about new tools that product managers are using these days. So
absolutely.
Granola is definitely one I'm gonna check out.
Matt, do you have any other questions for Marcus?
Yeah, just a real quick question. There are obviously a lot of layoffs going on currently in the US specifically. I mean, a lot of companies are, I think, reprioritizing themselves and thinking about, that whether that be AI, whether that be profitability, but in the job search. And so what would be like one key, I think we may have touched on it earlier, but what would be one key thing if someone is experiencing that in product that they should look into if they're being laid off?
Yeah. If I were going through that process again right now, and some words of advice I would share to maybe even a friend going through something like that, is to just slow down and take the time to just sit in it. It's okay that things might suck for a minute. And you have to really appreciate the fact that sometimes there's just a financial pressure to like get back into the game, and that can be really hard. But it is absolutely worth just like slowing down and leaning into really what is like two tools at your disposal that are going to help you a ton. One is your network, and the second is your hunger to go after what that next opportunity would be. And when you understand really what's energizing you and the kinds of companies that you want to work for, the kinds of people that you want to work for, the kind of work that you want to do, your hunger will have you, finding the email, going on, creating an account on Apollo, and finding the direct email of someone at a product company that you want to work for and slipping in a resume and saying, hey, I don't know if there's any product opportunities at this company right now. Like, it doesn't seem like there are any, but this team seems like a really great one that I want to work with. This space is interesting. So just follow your hunger for working as a product person for actual companies and opportunities that may or may not exist, but just try and create them. And leaning into your network to kind of make that make that come to fruition. And being open is okay. Like, to just tell people like, yeah, it's sucking, and having that community or that council.
You don't have to do it alone.
Yeah, 5 people are telling you, yeah, this also sucks.
Yeah.
But
Tell AI that. Yeah.
yeah. I really do think that like harnessing all of the AI tools that are the AI powered tools. AI is like energy now. It's just a different fuel into the system. Just learning how to use these tools and being open to using them is just going to help you shine what's already great about yourself. They're not going to necessarily replace you. They're going to enable you to focus on things that are even better.
That's cool. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, search with intent, I think is the key takeaway. Like be intentional on your search. Don't just go off and try to find the next role. Like really try to like take your time and find out what's best for you and your family and your career and longevity. So yeah, it's
That's
great.
right, for sure.
Thank you so much, Marcus. Really appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you. Yeah, it was great to be here.
Yeah. Where can people reach out to you?
LinkedIn is the best way for sure.
Okay. Amazing.
Yeah. in/MPOLINI. Yeah, LinkedIn's good. Pretty active on that.
And we will share the link in the comments and also links to some of the other resources that you mentioned, because I think that will be great for everyone to try them out.
Yeah, for sure. The values assessment, the whole like investment thesis, I created a template of that for a friend, which is like kind of blank. And I can definitely open that up. And if people want to go through the exercise,
sure.
That template
that'd be great.
will be available too.
Absolutely. Yeah, if you can share that, we will include that in the comments.
Well, thank you so much, Marcus, again. Moshe, thanks as always. Thank you to all the listeners, and we'll talk to everybody next time.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you to all the listeners. We really appreciate the feedback and support. Please leave us a review to help others find the show on Apple or Spotify or anywhere else you're listening to the show.